Hello students, today we're going to be looking at circumference of a circle. So we need to know the formula for finding the circumference of a circle. We need to understand the pi, we need to understand what that is and its relationship with circles. And we need to be able to calculate the circumference of circles. Here's our starter. I'd like you to pause the video and spend no more than 10 minutes completing this activity. Now what you'll need to do is match the word with the picture. Okay, so what you're gonna do, just write down the word and then sketch the picture that matches it in your book. Okay, once you're finished, resume the video to check your answers. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use numbers to matching numbers for the picture with the word. So if I go for tangent 1, then this picture here is representing tangent to a circle. If we go for circumference, it will be this one, because the red marking is the circumference, the perimeter of the circle. And if we go for radius, let's call that number 3, then our radius will go from the center of the circle to one point on the circle, so that's number 3. If we go for segment, let's call that number 4. Then this picture here would be the segment. Then if we go for chord, let's call that 5. This one would be our chord. And if we go for diameter, this picture would be our diameter, because that line going across seems like it's halfway through the circle and passing through the center as well. Let's go for sector. So this is our sector, pizza looking slice. And if we go for arc, then this red marking on here would be part of the circumference of the circle, is called the arc. And finally is our area of our circle, 9, and this one is 9, so the shading inside the circle is its area. Well done on trying those. Now let's move on to the lesson. What do we mean by the circumference of the circle? Okay, let's say we had a circle here, not the best circle, sorry, and let's say we had someone standing on the circle. So the circle is drawn on the ground and someone is standing on the circle. If the person starts walking from this point around along the marking for the circle and comes back to where he started, the person would have walked the circumference of the circle. So basically, circumference of the circle is the perimeter of the circle. So here we have a circle that's drawn better, and what we're going to look at is the relationship of the circumference with the diameter of the circle. So I've drawn the diameter, so the diameter here passing through the center of the circle and touching both ends of the circle, or two ends of the circle, 2 points on the circle, that's our diameter. And our circumference, as I showed you, is the distance around the circle. Now if we take that length for the diameter, okay, let's say we get a piece of string and we measure it from this point to that point to get the diameter and cut the string to that length. Then if we wrap, so I've put the diameter here now, if I should wrap the diameter around the circle, let's see how many times we're able to do this. So once, so from that point, this point here to here, I'm able to wrap it once. Then another time, so the length of the diameter will go from this point to this point, so a second time, and then once more, but we end up at this point. Okay, so that's the third time, and there's a little piece left, and that little piece is 1/7 of the length of the string that you're using to wrap around the circle. So basically, the diameter of the circle can wrap around the circle 3 1/7 times. Okay, now we can write that as an improper fraction, which is 7 times 3, 21, then add 1, 2, so it's 22/7. And there is a special name for this relationship, this value that we get when we divide the circumference by the diameter, and we call that pi. Okay, we call it pi. Here's our symbol for representing pi. You can check on your calculator to see if you find that symbol. Is somewhere at the bottom. So the value of pi is equal to 22/7, and the decimal representation of that is written below here at the bottom: 3.1415926535, etc., and it keeps going on continuously. Okay, for short, we usually use pi to approximately 2 decimal places, so 3.14 is what we use to represent pi. So remember the symbol pi. We get it when we divide the circumference by the diameter, and that gives us pi. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video to write down this formula for the circumference of a circle. So the circumference of a circle is equal to pi times diameter. Okay, and then we just write it as C equals pi d. When the pi is next to d, it just means you are multiplying them. Okay, pause the video. When you're ready, resume to move on. Before we do any calculations, we need to locate pi on the calculator. It's at the bottom of most of your calculators. So look on the bottom row, you'll find it. If you just press that button, pi will not come up on your display, so you'll have to press this one first. It's called shift. Press the shift button first, then press the button that pi is sitting on top of. Press that second, and you'll actually see pi coming up on your display. So make sure that you are able to locate pi on your calculator. Now we're gonna move on to doing some calculations. So for all the examples that are coming up, I'd like you to copy them in your math book, and so you'll have examples to use when you're working independently. Now we're ready for some calculations, so let us look at our first problem for finding circumference of circles. So the first question says, find the circumference in terms of pi. This is very important. We need to leave our answer with pi in it. So let's look at how we do this. So circumference is equal to pi times diameter. That's our formula. Our diameter in our question is 12, so pi will remain as it is, and then we're going to substitute the diameter to be 12. Now when we multiply pi times 12, if you try that on the calculator, you will see just 12 pi coming up, and that's what you need to leave your answer as, because it says find the circumference in terms of pi, and because it says in terms of pi, pi must be in your answer. Okay, let us look at the second example. It says find the circumference giving your answer to 1 decimal place. Okay, so we're gonna do C circumference is equal to pi multiplied by the diameter. In this question, the diameter is 7, so we'll write pi times and then replace the d diameter with 7, and 7 times pi, if you put that in your calculator, you'll see 7 pi. Now this here 7 pi is actually the circumference in terms of pi. We have not given our answer as 1 decimal place as yet, so that's what we now need to do. So when you put 7 times pi in your calculator and equal sign, and it comes up with 7 pi, What you need to do next is to press the SD button that I'm circling right here, and once you press the SD button you will get the decimal answer. When I put that in the calculator, I get 21.99114, and it keeps on going a little bit more, and the question says 1 dp, so I'm just gonna round that number off to 1 dp, and I'll get 22.0. okay, so that would be our circumference. Remember our units, actually we need to write centimeters, right? For the 12 pi as well, we need to write 12 pi, the unit centimeters as well, so remember the units. Let's look at a few more examples. So circumference, we need to find the circumference of the circle in terms of pi. So again, C is equal to pi times diameter, or diameter is 24, so we put pi times 24, and then that would be 24 pi centimeters. Now, as it said, leave your answer in terms of pi, so we have 24 pi there. That means we're complete. All right. For the second example, it says find the circumference, giving your answer to 1 decimal place. So you need to write your formula. Then pi times diameter is 10. Okay, and that's 10 pi. But if we leave it like that, we have not fully answered the question. The question says we need to write our answer to 1 dp. So when I put that in my calculator, I get 10 pi, and then press the SD button, and it says 3.14159, and it goes on a little bit more. We needed 1 decimal place. I'll round that off and I'll get 31.4 centimeters, because that's our first decimal place there. 31.4 centimeters. So we looked at circumference of a circle where we had the formula being pi times diameter. Now sometimes we might be given a circle and we're given the radius of the circle and we are asked to find the circumference. Now 2 radii will be equal to 1 diameter. Okay, so if we have the diameter of the circle, 2 of the radii will give us the length of the diameter, because here we have our circle, this is our diameter, here's our center. From here to here, that's a radius, and then from the center to the other side is also a radius. So we see where 2 radii is equal to the length of the diameter. Now if we are given a circle with its radius and asked to find our circumference, all we need to do is circumference is equal to pi times 2 times the radius, because 2 times the radius is our diameter. So we see circumference equal pi d, circumference equal pi times 2 times radius. So pause your video and write down this bit of information. Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times radius. When you're through, resume the video to continue. Let's look at these 2 examples. It says find the circumference of the circle here in terms of pi. This time they gave us the radius from the center to one point on the circle. So we've been given the radius, so we use the formula here. Circumference equal 2 times pi times radius. So we're going to leave that in terms of pi. So C is equal to 2 times pi times radius. So we write 2 times pi times, and what's the radius? 9. When we put that in our calculators, we'll get 18 pi, because 2 times 9 is 18. Then we write pi next to that. We have our answer in terms of pi, So it's pi centimeter, 18 pi centimeters. So we have answered our question. The second example is to find the circumference, giving your answer to one decimal place. So we will do C is equal to 2 times pi times radius, because we've been given the radius. Alright, so that is equal to 2 times pi times the radius is 8.5. When we put that in our calculator, we should get 17 pi, okay, because 2 times 8.5 is 17. Now we've stopped at 17 pi, but we are not yet complete because it did ask us to write the answer to one decimal place. So it therefore means we need to press the SD button on our calculator to get the decimal answer. So let me do that. Pi. And when I get that done in my calculator, it's 53.407. It keeps going, but we need one decimal place, so we just round it off to 53.4 centimeters. All right, here's our first task. To calculate circumference of circles. Bronze, you're given the diameter. Silver, you're given the radius. And gold, you're given a mixture. So you'll have to decide which of the formula for circumference you're going to use. Look back at the examples. I hope you wrote them off. Spend no more than 15 minutes doing these questions. Then resume the video to check your answers. Here are your answers to bronze, silver, gold. Pause the video and mark. Resume the video when you're ready to move on to the next part of the lesson. We're going to look at calculating radius and diameter of a circle when we're given the circumference. So the question says find the value of x giving your answers to 2 decimal places. So for the first one here, we have the circumference is given 12 centimeters, and we need to find x, and x in this case is the diameter, so we go for the formula where diameter is involved. So circumference is equal to pi times diameter. They said that the circumference is 12, so we're going to put that in there, and then write back pi and d diameter, because that's what we want to find. Diameter is x. So all we need to do is check what we are multiplying pi by to get 12, because pi is a number in our calculator, 3.14, when we round that to 2 decimal places. So what will we multiply pi by to get d? All we'd have to do is divide 12 by pi. So the diameter is going to be equal to 12 divided by pi. When we put that in our calculators, we will round that off to 2 decimal places. So let me get that done. 12 divided by pi, and d works out to be 3.82 centimeters when I put that in my calculator. And so the diameter is d, and x in our question was the diameter, so therefore we have found our answer. Let's look at the second problem. We have the circumference is given, it's 80, and they ask us to find x, and x is the radius, so we're going to use a formula that has the radius. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, and they said that the circumference is 80. Then we write back 2 times pi times radius. So we need to find out what the radius is. That's our x. So the radius is multiplied by 2 times pi. So to get the radius, all we need to do is divide 80 by 2 times pi. Okay, and that will give us our radius. So what you will do is type that in your calculator, 80 divided by 2 pi. So when you put that in your calculator, you should do 80 divided by 2 pi, because 2 times pi is 2 pi. Okay, now when I put that in to my calculator and round it to 2 decimal places, let me fix that. Yes, I get the radius to be equal to 12.73 centimeters. I remember the radius is x in the question. That means we have answered our question properly. So this takes a little bit of practice. So let us look at some other examples. Let's look at 2 more examples of calculating radius or diameter. So for the first one, it says find the value of x, giving your answer to 2 decimal places. So we've been given the circumference and we need to find x, and x is our diameter. Okay, so we need that formula with the diameter, circumference equal pi times d. Then we'll substitute the circumference, which is 100, write back pi times d. Then all we need to do is find out what d would be if when multiplied by pi gives 100. So what we'll do then is d and then divide 100 by pi. Okay, because pi times d is 100, so if we divide 100 by pi, it should give us d. Alright, when we put that in our calculators, we get 31.83 centimeters when rounded to 2 decimal places. Notice the question asks for 2 decimal places, so that's what we have to leave our answer in. The next example is to find x when the circumference is 50 centimeters. However, this time our x is the radius, so we need to use a formula that has the radius in it, 2 times pi times radius. They said the circumference is 50, so 2 times pi times radius will be written back, and we substituted 50. Now 2 times pi is just 2 pi, okay, and then times radius equal 50. Now we are multiplying 2 pi with radius to get 50. So if we divide 50 by 2 pi, it should give us radius. So to get our radius, it's going to be 50 divided by 2 pi, right? And when we put that in our calculators, we will end up with the radius being equal to 7.96 centimeters, written to 2 decimal places. So make sure you copy these examples, and then once you're ready to move on, you can resume to do so. Here is task 2. So these questions are based on what we just looked at. So I'd like for you to spend 15 minutes trying these questions. Pause the video to do so. When you're ready to check your answer, resume the video, and we can mark or work. Here are your answers. Okay, so that's what you should have gotten from your calculations. If you have gone to this point and your 100 minutes is complete, then do send me photos of your work make sure it is marked, and I will give you some feedback. If you have some more time left before the 100 minutes is up, I'd like for you to access this link from Show My Homework, and it will give you a description of what you need to do. So it's a bit of an extension task, and practice working with circumference of circles. So if you do have the time before the 100-minute lesson is over, please try to do some of these questions. You'll find the description on Show My Homework. Once you're through doing that, send pictures of all the work you have done today and submit to Show My Homework, and I will give you some feedback. Please, please, please make sure that you mark your work before you submit it. Thank you, and have a lovely day.